Hey there again, this is Dave with Farmers Pride, and today we're going to be part of our Farmers Pride Connections video series with Mr. Bob Pollock. Bob is one of our agronomists at our Battle Creek location. And Bob, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about gridding fields and fertilizer soil samples, and I'll share a story that I've run across with some of our salespeople this fall. Early winter, some farmers have not been necessarily happy with some of their yields. They thought maybe they would do better. The weather turned well for them, and come to find out that they were having some trouble probably on their nitrogen or their crop nutrient side, as far as when we started asking some questions, were you taking soil samples? And the answer was no. And so that led him on to some other things. So what are you seeing out there, the first stages of what you have to do when you start wanting to look at eventually getting to a grid, precision or variable rate applications of your fertilizers, and in line as well, I would guess, because that's where his conversation went.
Well, the first thing, the smartest and cheapest thing you can do is take soil samples. Without those, we're just shooting in the dark. We don't know what nutrients are already in the soil.
Yeah.
And the least expensive way would be just taking a composite sample, as we say. Go out and take 10 to 12 core samples on 40 acres or even up to 80. Mix them together, that's called a composite sample. Then we know kind of an average of what's out there.
And I think that's what that farmer was speaking about, Bob, is he just did a complete flat rate of all of his nutrients on the field.
Yeah.
Without any more specific sampling than that.
Right, and as you all know, the soils in our area are so variable.
No doubt.
So that's when I like to get into the grid samples, where we go out and we'll take a sample every 2.5 acres. We'll go into the computer, plot out your field, set the grid up, drive out to the center of this 2.5 acre plot, take those 8 cores, mix it up,
Yep.
and that's one sample. Do that like on a quarter of ground, that's 64 samples, as opposed to 2 samples or maybe 4 samples. So we know exactly where we need to put the proper amount of nutrients, or one very important thing is the pH and how much lime goes where. A lot of the field may not need any lime.
Right.
Some I've seen it needs up to 6 tons per acre.
And if your pHs aren't right, what does that mean? What happens to the nutrients that I did put down?
When the pH is too high, there's really not much we can do about it. If it's too low, that's when we lime the soils.
Okay.
When the pH is too low, it's going to tie up certain nutrients, phosphorus, potassium, other micronutrients will not be as available as they should be in a neutral pH.
Okay. So if I don't have the right pH levels, I could be, especially if they're too low, I'm putting fertilizer on and it's not getting used.
Right, it's not going to get used, it's going to be tied up by that improper pH. Also, with low pHs, certain chemicals are not going to work as well.
Sure.
So you won't have as good weed control.
Okay.
We can, once we find out where either the lime is needed or nutrients are needed, then we can prescribe a program of how much to put where. And the end result might not be you're going to be spending more money. A lot of times you just spend the same amount of money, but you're putting the product in the correct area.
Where you need it and places where you don't need it. So you're being more effective with your investment or your dollar.
Exactly.
Okay. So at Farmers Pride, we have a program called SSA, or Site Specific Agronomy, which is doing exactly what you're talking about. It's doing precision application of the nutrients to the crop. Right. So your P and K, lime, we can do that as well. How long have Farmers Pride been running the site-specific agronomy program?
We've been doing it over 20 years. We were one of the first adapters of that technology.
Okay.
The first grid sample I ever took was in 1998, and that particular field, the grower, even last week I was talking to him and he said his neighbor comments all the time. Ever since we started grid sampling, that field's been getting better and better every year.
Right, right.
And just as same as with putting the lime, proper amount of lime in the right place,
Yeah.
we're doing the same with the nutrients. In areas that have naturally high phosphorus or potassium, the prescription will lower the rate that goes there.
Yep.
Where those nutrients are very low, it increases.
Makes sense.
Our application equipment has 3 different bins.
Okay.
Typically, we'll put phosphorus in one, potassium in another, and maybe micronutrients in the third. And each one is controlled independent of the others. So as phosphorus application may be going up, potassium might be going down or completely shut off. So
It's amazing technology.
it is. It's incredible. Back when I started in this area, there was not even an idea of doing that yet.
Yeah, no, I
So
understand
it's
that.
really come a long ways.
Yeah. So the cost of that, I've heard some producers say, "Oh, I don't want to spend the money on that." What's it typically cost to get a field grid?
When we do a grid sample, it's $10 per acre, which
Okay.
yes, it is more expensive than a composite, but you're getting so much information. And typically, for that $10, you get the sample, the initial sample, and all the recommendations, the prescriptions. And then after about 2 years, we'll go out and spot check one point every 40 acres. So say we'll pick a point that was really low in phosphorus or pH or whatever we want to determine. We'll go exactly to that spot, take a sample around the pickup again and see what's happening out there.
If something's changed.
Right, if
hopefully
things
for
are
the better.
coming up or if things going down.
Right.
And then we'll kind of readjust at that time. After about 5 years, if we get into 5-6 years, I like to maybe do a regrid on the whole field.
Sure.
So we're only looking at about $2 per acre per year.
Okay, so spread that over 5 years, right? $2 an acre to
Yeah.
really know what's going on in my field. It seems like a great investment.
It's peanuts. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is nothing.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's been around a while, like you said, but in my travels around our Farmers Pride territory, I'm surprised to learn more people, or some people have never gridded a field. They've never spent the $10 an acre to do
Yeah.
it, Bob. And so
Yeah.
I think in today's economic world and, the opportunity to at least maybe more smartly, if that's the right word, put my nutrients down and get better yields. That's what that farmer's goal is. He's hoping to maybe spend the same or maybe a little less, but get better yields on that
Right.
field where he came back and said, when he did go back and sample, his pHs were all messed up. So
Right.
that he had to start there, and he's going from there. He's going to grid that field and get a variable rate put on. So,
Yeah, the whole thing that we're going after is the greatest economic return.
yeah.
And normally that means going after higher yields
No doubt.
and doing it in a smart way.
Yeah.
We don't want to just go out there blind, which I've got a lot of fields that need soil sampling, and I highly recommend doing the grid samples.
I asked that farmer, I said, so how did you know what to put on there? And he kind of sheepishly said, I asked, could you see it in the field? Could you see it in the dirt? No, he says, I didn't know until I actually got a grid sample,
Right.
soil samples.
Right,
And
you're
then-
not going to be able to tell just by looking at the soil.
But he did know when he combined that there were some spots that didn't do well.
Yeah.
And that's gonna come back on his grid. So
Yeah.
that should be good.
And in addition to the new technology, the combines with the yield mapping ability.
Oh, sure.
We can take those yield maps, lay them over the top of our grid samples, and see just where the high yields are being taken off of. And a lot of times they're taken off of where the nutrients are the lowest, because we're removing so much.
Yeah.
Where the yields are poor, we usually have a buildup. So then we want to look at what else may need to be done.
Yeah. Good point.
So using both technologies, overlapping those, is a great tool.
That's wonderful. Well, if you've got questions about your investment in your field with your crop nutrients, please come and see us at Farmers Pride. talk to us about one, variable rate applications in our SSA program that'll help you be smarter with your money, build your yields, which is the one thing we can probably control. I can't control price, Bob, but I can bump my yields. I do have some
Right.
input there, and you can help me with that. So, yeah, just come see us this winter, and we'll go get those fields gridded for you. See if we can come up with a great recommendation for you and help you with those yields in 2020. So, signing off with Farmers Pride with Bob Pollock. This is Dave Spencer. We'll see you at our next video connection series.